A geologist's wake-up call for Micalago number 206. Micalago Quarry Memorandum. In what feels like the latest chapter of a never-ending story, a new, independent geological memorandum has landed. One that could significantly shift the public understanding of a potential environmental disaster in Micalago. Submitted to the Monaro Zone by a professional geologist under conditions of anonymity, referred to here as Benny C. This report raises damning concerns about the credibility and methodology of the Snowy Monaro Regional Council's water testing regime. Benny C., whose professional background spans both industry and academia, brings a level of expertise that demands attention. This is precisely the kind of rigorous insight our region sorely needs, and one can ill afford to ignore. He describes a level of lack of care on the investigation that borderlines on negligence. Benny C. brings to light concerns that the community deserves to have addressed with transparency and urgency. The memorandum casts serious doubt over the Council's internal water sampling practices, warning of methodological flaws, inconsistencies, and what the geologist describes as a large underestimate of pollutants, particularly from the iron or pit site 003. One assay from that site showed tin levels of 20.5 milligrams per litre, a figure the author bluntly calls puzzling, given that iron ore mines are not known to exhibit such concentrations. Throughout the document, Benny C. systematically dismantles the credibility of the Council's conclusions. He notes with alarm the lack of triplicate samples, the inconsistent test types, and the absence of geographic coordinates, all critical components in ensuring reliable and reproducible results. One cannot detect outliers, he warns, which are quintessential in answering the question posed in this conflict. Perhaps the most damning findings emerge in the final pages. According to Benny C., the Council's own staff, specifically the individual responsible for both rounds of water sampling, has no documented experience in scientific water analysis. This, he concludes, represents a first-order conflict of interest, undermining any attempt at a transparent investigation. He states plainly, there is considerable reasonable doubt imparted on the results presented by the Snowy Monaro Regional Council that they reflect an honest and true depiction of the natural waterways that run through the property of Micalago resident number 1. Further, independent assays from the resident show elevated levels of lead, iron, and selenium, none of which appeared in the Council's own testing. How could this be, if the same source was sampled? Benny C.'s conclusion is unequivocal. The results analysed in this memo from the Regional Council cannot be held to account for an honest, transparent, and genuine investigation in the matter regarding discharge of water quality into the property of Micalago resident number 1. This memo isn't just a technical rebuttal, it's a wake-up call for a council buckling under the weight of issues that just will not go away. A redacted version of the full memorandum will be made available on our Substack under episode A Geological Wake-Up Call for Micalago number 206 in the near future once names and addresses can be removed. We extend our sincere thanks to Benny C. for his time, effort, and exceptional expertise in preparing this detailed memorandum. His willingness to step forward, albeit anonymously, and contribute his professional insight speaks volumes about his commitment to scientific integrity and public accountability. We hope he will be available in the near future to answer further questions, clarify findings, and, if possible, provide a follow-up analysis as new information emerges. His voice is a vital one in this ongoing conversation, and we are deeply grateful for his contribution to the public interest. The following is a transcription of the Geological Memorandum. Only names and addresses have been removed.
Micalago is located on the eastern edge of the Quarry synclinal zone, with the location of Micalago Road being situated on a major Bura fault zone. Bedrock mapping in the region from the New South Wales Geological Survey showed that Micalago is dominantly within the Silurian Colinton Volcanics Formation. This formation is made up of rhyolitic tuff and minor siltstone, sandstone, and limestone. Nearby and to the east at Micalago lies the major Devonian granite Micalago adamelite. The bedrock here is the Ordovician fallow beds, which are comprised of clastic-reduced sedimentary rocks and minor chert. Historically, numerous mineral prospects have been worked on in the region. Of principal interest is prospect number 33, Micalago Iron Quarries, and prospect number 34, Micalago Copper Prospect. Both occur near and along strike the Bura fault zone, which itself has been observed displaying high degrees of sulfide and iron enrichment along its entire length, particularly north of Micalago. Part 2. Water Chemistry. 2 analyses were conducted from samples at 6 sites separated by 9 months for total metal concentrations. Samples were analysed by the ALS Water Labs, with the client being the Snowy Monaro Regional Council. Some major, Overarching concerns on the quality of the analyses are mentioned below. 1. There is a lack of triplicate repeats in both analyses to measure relative error and standard deviations in concentrations as is typical for analytical reporting. 2. Choice of assay tests, total metals in 2022 vs dissolved metals in 2023, were not consistent between the two analyses, with tin concentrations being entirely absent in the August 2023 results along with a suite of additional metals. This difference in choice invalidates correlations between the two analyses, as metal solubilities, and thus their concentrations, will differ depending on a variety of factors such as pH, redox states, etc. 3. Consequently, sampling methods were not kept the same across the two analyses, which further complicate correlation. For example, total metal concentration of chromium was determined using optical emission spectrometry for the November 2022 samples, but they were determined using mass spectrometry during the August 2023 samples. 4. No geographic data such as coordinates were provided for the Snowy Monaro Regional Council sample sites to allow for independent verification and additional analysis with existing datasets. The lack of triplicate repeats for both analyses carried out by the Snowy Monaro Regional Council are particularly concerning, as with only duplicate samples, and not true duplicates sensu stricto due to the samples being taken at different times and different assaying techniques, one cannot detect outliers, which are the quintessential in answering the question posed in this conflict. This is additionally compounded by the fact that natural systems like waterways are subject to a wide range of frequencies of fluctuations in their background concentrations in solutes, ranging from long-term secular to seasonal variations. Good examples of this can be seen in a range of metallic assays in Figure 2, where the difference between the 2022 and 2023 analyses can vary by more than an order of magnitude. This order of magnitude difference in sample concentrations can be seen in aluminium, iron, lead, and manganese. Finally, there is confusion as to why the suite of elemental assays was not kept consistent between the two analyses despite clear evidence for elevated values being present, such as the 2022 tin assays, which were not repeated in the 2023 analysis. The largest problem with this is that much iron is present not as dissolved iron that would be detected in the 2023 analysis, but as particulate matter under oxidizing conditions typical of surface water. This leads to a large underestimate of the actual amount of iron discharging from the iron or pit site. Independent water assays requested by a Micalago resident in October 2022 were collected from the discharge coming from the iron or pit site. The results of this test should correlate with samples taken from iron or pit site 003 in the Snowy Monaro Regional Council's analysis during 2022. However, there are poor matches for not only the iron or pit site 3 but every other sample site collected by the Snowy Monaro Regional Council. Of note, the Micalago resident samples show elevated levels of metals such as iron, lead, and selenium that are not present in any of the Snowy Monaro Regional Council samples. Figure 2. Excerpt of assays results from both the Snowy Monaro Regional Council and Micalago residents sorted by year of sampling and location of samples. Assays for boron, calcium, lithium, sodium, strontium, titanium, vanadium, thallium, thorium, and uranium were omitted as they did not contain a repeat measurement in 2023. Without triplicate samples, it is impossible to determine if the assays from the Micalago resident are within error or standard deviation of any of the sample sites, and given the large magnitude and variability across the sampling methods and the values of the assays, there is considerable reasonable doubt imparted on the results presented by the Snowy Monaro Regional Council that they reflect an honest and true depiction of the natural waterways that run through property of the Micalago resident. Part 3. Discussion. In the context of both the geological setting and the assays presented here, there are additionally more questions surrounding the validity of the analyses. To address the elephant in the room first, 2022 tin assay results from iron or pit site 003 show exceptionally elevated levels at 20.5 mg per liter. This is puzzling given iron or mines are not elevated in tin. Elevated tin concentrations 4 orders of magnitude greater than typical concentrations in rivers, WHO, 2004, IPCS, 2005, are only seen in granite tin mines, of which the closest analogue would likely be the Micalago adamelite. While it is possible for tin deposits to be hosted in rhyolite such as those around Michelago, these are volumetrically rare worldwide and does not remove the doubt of the high tin sample being collected from an iron ore pit. Consulting both the Australian and New Zealand water guidelines for fresh and marine water quality, as well as the Australian drinking water guidelines, show some samples that have exceeded thresholds. While the toxicology effects of manganese, tin, and iron are low with respect to human physiology, these thresholds are required to maintain healthy riparian zones and habitats for wildlife. Long-term damage is possible to the environment and surrounding properties, should these threshold triggers not be monitored and remediated if necessary. Part 4. Conclusions and Recommendations. In light of the data analyzed in this memo, there is considerable doubt that the Snowy Monaro Regional Council has done due diligence in performing a rigorous, defensible water sample collection program to adequately show that water from the iron ore pit site is safe for both human and livestock consumption and freshwater health. The lack of triplicate measurements, changes in assay test types, differences in sampling methods, lack of geographic data along with assay results that do not correlate with the geological background of the Micalago area demonstrate a level of lack of care on the investigation that borderlines on negligence. It is noted from a chain of custody documents submitted for the memo that in both years of analyses, council staff from the Snowy Monaro Regional Council had collected the samples. This represents a first-order conflict of interest, given the purpose of these samples were to resolve publicly raised conflict of property usage. Furthermore, a background check on council staff shows no prior experience in conducting scientific water sampling routines, further jeopardizing the results put forward by the Regional Council. In future, the Snowy Monaro Regional Council would benefit from hiring an independent third-party contractor experienced in water sampling to conduct the sampling, ensuring that sample coordinates are clearly recorded, with triplicate samples collected, and test types kept standardized. To not do so, as presented here, is to cast skepticism on the validity and honesty of the conclusions reached by the Snowy Monaro Regional Council. It is my professional opinion as an experienced geologist that the results analyzed in this memo from the Regional Council cannot be held to account for an honest, transparent, and genuine investigation in the matter regarding discharge of water quality into the property of Micalago resident.